Just this once. And I want to
subscribe.
Kaizoku.
Alright, it's been 10 weeks since I started OP05 content. That should have been enough time for me to get a feel for the meta, right? I know these come out quite late on my channel, but I really don't like to do like week 1 tier lists that just speculate from the Eastern meta. I like to get my hands dirty. With that being said, remember when red was the top meta and the top 3 decks were like red decks that had widely different playstyles from each other and were able to actually take games off each other pretty often? Well, that meta is gone. There's just one dominant deck now, with everyone's list being only a couple cards different from each other. And to no one's surprise, Blue-Black Sakazuki is the best deck in the format, the sole leader in the S tier. A Sakazuki deck just does too much, too consistently, too well. Everything in this deck does 2 things in 1 card. Lucci KOs 2 characters for 4 Dawn. Rebecca plays 2 characters for 4 Dawn. Houndblade's bottom decks a character and buffs a card for 2 Dawn. His leader effect comes with 2 free abilities that don't cost any Dawn to use. There's just so much value packed into the 50 card slots available in the deck. His matchups go from advantageous to only just about even, which is pretty good. There's really only one leader he has trouble with, and it's Katakuri. So now on to the A tier, the rest of the meta decks. First off, we have Katakuri here. With the decrease in popularity of Whitebeard and Red-Green Law, Katakuri has a very comfortable time in the meta. Katakuri is also probably the only leader with a favorable matchup to the lone S tier leader, Sakazuki. OP05 helps shore up Katakuri's weakness to aggro too. Hiratsu KOs something on play, and Amaru can be used both as a finisher or a life-saving trigger. This makes it even safer to drop the oppressive 10 cost Big Mom and pull so far ahead in life that you can't be aggroed down. Next up is Enel in the A tier. Enel is a more defensive version of Katakuri. His leader ability naturally makes him really hard to finish off. The deck relies a lot more on triggers than Katakuri does, since your opponent will constantly be trying to get you to take your last life through your leader ability, allowing you to heal, and then you get more triggers off of that naturally. Normally I'd say this kind of makes it RNG dependent, but Yellow actually has had like 3 expansions of trigger support now, so there's a plethora of trigger options to choose from that it's really not hard at all, top decking into that one trigger that'll turn the tides of a match. There's really no viable counterplay to Yellow's trigger mechanics at the moment, nor will there be in OP06 and Starter Deck 13, so Yellow will be unchecked for a while. Next up in the A tier is actually Eustace Captain Kid. I think Kid is very slept on, and no, it's not the degen Kid list. I am brewing a different list that's been doing pretty well into Yellow actually. I want to keep it a secret for now, but if you faced a Kid these past few days that wasn't double swinging for face every turn, that was most likely me. But if you were facing a Kid that was double swinging face every turn, that was still probably likely me. I've just been exploring a lot of ways to play Kid recently. So on to the B tier. A lot of the decks in the B tier are gate kept by S and A tier decks. First and foremost, we'll start off with Roronoa Zoro. Zoro in OP05 does best with an aggressive deck. The mid-range version just can't compete with Sakazuki and Enel. Zoro is definitely gate kept by Enel at the moment. Enel's leader ability makes it a guaranteed uphill climb to close out a game. You need a good curve to even stand a chance of winning too. Because of this, Zoro drops down to B. Hitting the perfect amount of searchers into buffers can definitely destroy Sakazuki's and Katakuris, but games where you whiff are almost unwinnable. Zoro still does great into the rest of the meta though. Next we have Purple Luffy in the B tier. Purple Luffy is definitely gate kept by Sakazuki. Being a deck revolving around 5 costs, it's not hard for Sakazuki to KO your board. You usually ramp twice, meaning you're basically a 3 life leader, which is detrimental against Sakazuki too, as he actually attacks quite often for big numbers, even though he's a deck that contains a lot of KO effects. He does quite a bit better into Katakuri and Enel though, but then he has a glaring weakness to aggressive red decks due to being a pseudo 3 life leader. So while I don't think Purple Luffy is a bad deck, he's just in an awkward spot in this meta, with Sakazuki as best deck in format and red decks being forced to be more aggro to compete. Next up in B is Red Purple Law. Red Purple Law is a great aggro / control deck. He builds board control by always getting rid of something while developing something of his own. He really only struggles against the S and A tier leaders. Sakazuki can easily KO 2 characters to negate that board advantage, and Katakuri and Enel's late game can be hard to deal with if you haven't aggroed them down enough. But against B tier and below, Red Purple Law is really strong actually. One other issue though is that With the combo nature of his deck, sometimes you just brick and you can't play your deck to its full potential, and there aren't too many ways to increase that consistency at the moment. Next up in B is Red Purple Luffy. Red Purple Luffy is a deck that is saved thanks to the lifting of the restricted list. He's an aggressive ramp deck that focuses on either dropping back-to-back 9-cost Whitebeards or utilizing his special synergy with 10-cost Secret Luffy that lets you attack 3 times in a row. He actually does quite well into Sakazuki, as the 6k base stat line makes it hard for Sakazuki to ping you while controlling your board, and your high-cost characters are harder to remove. Red Purple Luffy struggles against Katakuri and Enel though. Katakuri's buff leader swings are harder to defend at 3 starting life, and Enel's leader ability almost outright counters your deck's go tall playstyle entirely. Next up in B is Blue Yellow Queen. Queen hasn't seen much representation in the West, but I feel like this leader is also slept on. Queen functions very similarly to Enel in that you'll be healing a lot and getting many beneficial triggers due to this. But unlike Enel, Queen can literally control what cards will go to life to be triggered thanks to blue cards like Doflamingo and X-Drake. People can complain about RNG against Enel, but Queen's triggers are almost always intentional. The only drawback is that it's a lot harder to become immortal on Queen, as it requires being low on life plus hand size, and also having a big body on board when you swing. Enel kinda just gets that heal for free. Next up in B is Whitebeard. Whitebeard has been power crept from the meta. Similarly to Zoro and Red Purple Luffy, red decks have had to depend on a more aggro style of play, using rush cards to play around the heavy removal in this set. I think Whitebeard does pretty decently against Sakazuki though, but Yellow got enough new support that it eclipses what was once a 50-50 matchup. Next up in the B tier is Red Green Law. Red Green Law kind of feels like he's been slapped from every direction this meta. Sakazuki can remove enough bodies to make it hard to leader ability. Enel is hard to finish off even through double swinging with starter deck 2 Law. Red Green Law gets 0 new support for the past couple sets now. So while the deck can still win, it does require like the perfect draw into the perfect amount of pressure to do so, which is a historical flaw of this combo deck that is now magnified even more in this current meta. Next up in the B tier is Black Yellow Big Mom. Black Yellow Big Mom enjoys the benefits of both the new black and yellow cards in OP05. Honestly, she might even be higher, but I haven't played enough of her to feel confident putting her any higher than B. But as far as I can tell, she dabbles into a little of what Sakazuki can do, and dabbles into a little of what Katakuri can do, but she can't do it as well as both of them. Also in the B tier is Red Yellow Bello Betty. Bello Betty can execute explosive turns and add 9k worth of stats for the price of 1 card. The only thing that's holding her back is Sakazuki being able to answer her swarming very well, and Katakuri/Enel being able to match her triggers. But against any opponent that doesn't have the optimal hand, Bello Betty is often hard to stop. She just needs a little more support, as some of the cards in her deck really are just like filler Revolutionary Army cards. Meanwhile, a deck like Sakazuki, every card in that deck is purposeful and useful. Lastly in the B tier, I would say Blue Nami. Nami does a little better in this slower, removal heavy and blocker heavy meta, as she has a little more breathing room to mill herself. That being said, I don't have too much experience with her, so I can't put her any higher than B, but she should be better in this meta, in theory. Next up is the C tier. C tier are rogue decks that you'll see do well every now and again. I won't go into these in too much detail, but in this tier we have Mono Blue Croc. Honestly, he just feels like a worse version of Sakazuki, without the support of black and then a free leader ability. And the Sentamaru engine is way too slow now. Next up is Mono Blue Doflamingo. Doflamingo also has not gotten much love in the past few sets. He plays the same way he's played since just about OP02, maybe even OP03, and he was never an oppressive deck back then, so that shouldn't change now. We also have Ace here. There's just not enough support for a control red deck. Meanwhile, the other red decks have been forced to go more aggro to even compete in this meta, which is not the focus of an Ace deck. We also have Blue-Black Rebecca, literally just the worst version of Sakazuki, since she herself cannot attack, and she doesn't have any built-in cost reduction. We also have Odin here. Odin is a turtle style deck, but Sakazuki does have easy ways to remove your big characters. We also have Green Purple Doflamingo here. The green film package just isn't enough anymore, and if you're running a Doflamingo Pirates package, the purple side doesn't really give much to you. We also have Yellow Big Mom here. Yellow Big Mom could be in B, but I haven't played enough of her. I just assume she's a worse Katakuri. Just gonna put her in C for now. We also have Black Luffy. Black Luffy was a lot better when Whitebeard was the top meta, because he can attack for 6k every turn. But Sakazuki can just remove things way better than Black Luffy can, which was one of his main benefits over other leaders, so his spotlight has been taken away. Next is the D tier. These are playable decks. These decks can take off games from probably any deck up until B. In this tier we have Blue Purple Kaido. I think there's enough support in the Animal Kingdom pirates now that this deck does feel complete, just not competitive. We also have Purple Yellow Crocodile, same thing. And we will get more support for him in EB01, so we'll be excited to see if that changes anything. Magellan is also here, just a worse Purple Luffy who can't ramp on his own. Purple Black Z is here. He would be good if his leader ability wasn't so expensive, because he does benefit from some of the same things that Blue Black Sakazuki can. Also, he can't discard cards. We also have Rob Lucci here. I think the CP9 package is still pretty solid, but just not competitive. We have Red Luffy here. Honestly, his leader ability is just too low value. There needs to be more support for Shuffling Dawn that utilizes his leader ability better. Otherwise, he will always just be eclipsed by Zoro. We also have Red Black Sabo here. Honestly, he just feels like a worse red deck. You'll only win games against people who don't know what his leader ability does, and then I don't think that is a viable strategy to rely on your opponent's lack of knowledge for a leader. We also have Yellow Yamato here. A yellow deck that has nothing to do with life manipulation, which is its strongest suit, I feel. So just a very bad version of Katakuri. Then in the doo-doo tier, these are decks that have leaders with horrible leader abilities or deck archetypes that Bandai has completely forgotten and stopped supporting. This tier is pretty much just every remaining leader here. So Blue Purple Crocodile, King, Isho, Red Black Garp, Kinemon, Green Blue Sanji, Blue Ivankov, Black Smoker, Kudo, Arlong, Iceberg, Uta, Red Green Luffy, Purple Kaido, Shanks, Black Sakazuki, Red Blue Vivi, Green Blue Rosinante, and Red Purple Kid. So that's how the meta has felt for me over the past 10 weeks. Do I like the OP05 meta? To be honest, not really. It really boils down to like Sakazuki and Katakuri / Enel at the moment, which feels kind of worse than it used to in OP04. Red was strong in OP04, but even then, it was 3 distinctly different red decks that were at the top of the meta. But currently, there's only one top deck in the format, and they all play the same. Which is weird because while red cards were strong, they could be expressed in different playstyles, as seen with Zoro, Whitebeard, and Law last set. If blue and black cards got stronger this set, we should see more than just Sakazuki at the top, right? We should see other blue and black leaders up here as well, but we don't really see that, so I think it really is just because of the color combination of black and blue, along with Sakazuki's free utility via his leader ability. We sort of see this phenomenon in the next set too with green-black Perona, but we'll get to that video at a later time. So what do you think of my tier list? I'm pretty sure everyone is in agreement for S, A, and B tier, but if you think differently for C, D, and F, you can C these nuts and F yourself. And then let me know if there's anything I may have missed or anything you want to flame me about in the comments below. Also, I would appreciate a subscribe. I don't know why, but it works when you remind people in the video, so this is that reminder. No shame. Okay, bye.
Car D Kaizoku.